At the Wayfinding Station, we don't shout, we don't shame, and we don't tell you what to think. We teach you how to read. I'm a reading interventionist. That's a specific kind of teacher. When a student is struggling, not because that they're not smart, not because that they're not trying, but because no one ever taught them how to read what's in front of them, I'm the one they call. I diagnose the gap. I build the skill. And I don't leave until they can read it for themselves. For 40 years, that's been my work. And here's what I've learned. The same 7 tricks that confuse a struggling reader on the page are the exact same 7 tricks that confuse a thinking adult in the world. Fear stacking, the enemy of the day, the loyalty trap, whataboutism, flattery as leash. The difference is that in a classroom, we catch it early. In the world, people go decades without anyone handing them a red pen. This series, the MAGA Exit, is me handing you that pen. Because what I see when I look at millions of Americans feeling betrayed, confused, and angry is not a political crisis. It's a reading crisis, and a reading crisis has a reading solution. This is also a live test of something I've taught for years, the Stoic framework. Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, 2,000-year-old tools for the hardest human moments. I've used them in classrooms. I've used them in life. I've never tested them against a national election before. But November is coming, and the question is simple. Can a person who's been handed the wrong story, and believed it, learn to read it differently in 18 weeks? I believe they can. That's what we're about to do. Segment 1, the 7 tricks. Let's start with the diagnostic. Every struggling reader falls for the same traps, and every trapped thinker falls for the same ones too. Here they are. I'm going to name them, and I want you to notice which ones feel familiar. Trick 1. Fear stacking. If everything is a crisis, nothing gets examined. Fear bypasses the thinking brain. It goes straight to the survival brain. And a brain in survival mode doesn't read carefully. It just reacts. Trick 2. The rotating enemy. Today, it's immigrants. Tomorrow, it's the deep state. Next week, it's the media. The target changes, but the structure never does. There is always a they coming for you. Always an emergency. Always a reason you can't stop to think. Trick 3. The big lie told small. Not one massive falsehood. That would be too easy to catch. Instead, a small distortion repeated until it feels familiar. And familiarity feels like truth. That's just how human brains work. Trick 4. Smaller lies repeated endlessly. The big lie's little cousins, told so often on so many screens that checking every single one feels exhausting. And exhaustion is the point. A tired reader stops reading. Trick 5. Flattery is control. You're smart. You see what others don't. You're one of the good ones. Flattery isn't kindness. Flattery is a leash, and the person holding it knows exactly what they're doing. Trick 6. The loyalty trap. If you question, you're a traitor. If you leave, you were never really one of us. The trap isn't the belief. The trap is the identity. When leaving means losing who you are, most people stay. Trick 7. Whataboutism. Every criticism deflected, every question dodged. What about the other side? What about Hillary? What about Biden? It's not an argument, it's a shield, and it works because it feels like fairness. These 7 tricks are not political, they're pedagogical. I've seen every single one of them in a 3rd-grade reading group. The only difference is scale. Now let me show you what happens when you apply them to real money. Segment 2. Follow the money. Here's where the red pen comes out. In 2025, the Department of Health and Human Services underwent what was called a reorganization. Programs were consolidated. Funding was redirected. Officials described it as efficiency. But a reading teacher doesn't listen to the description. A reading teacher follows the money. When the dust settled, billions of dollars that had been allocated for public health, for rural hospitals, for maternal care, for disease prevention, had been moved. Some of it went to private contractors. Some of it went to organizations with direct ties to administration officials. Some of it simply disappeared from public tracking. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is public record. The Government Accountability Office published the numbers. You can read them yourself. But here's the reading lesson. The story that was told, efficiency, streamlining, cutting waste, doesn't match the document. The story says one thing, the receipt says another. That's a reading error. And a reading error that costs billions of dollars and affects millions of lives is not a small mistake. It's a betrayal. And the natural human response to betrayal is rage, shame, exhaustion, denial, all of which make you less likely to read carefully next time, which is, of course, the design. So what do you do with that feeling? That's where the Stoics come in. Segment 3. The Stoic Framework. Epictetus was born a slave. He was tortured, he was exiled, and he became one of the most influential teachers in Western history, not because his life was easy, but because he figured out the one thing that actually works when everything is falling apart. He called it the dichotomy of control. Some things are up to us, some things are not. That's it. 2,000 years of philosophy. One distinction. What's not up to you, what they told you, what they did with the money, whether they admit it, whether they face consequences, whether anyone else sees what you now see. What is up to you? Whether you keep reading, whether you ask the next question, whether you let shame keep you stuck or let learning move you forward, whether you walk into that voting booth in November as someone who reads or someone who reacts. You didn't choose to be deceived, no one does, but you do choose what happens next. That's not blame, that's power. And right now, power is what you need. Segment 4. The Exit Ramp. Here's why I became a reading interventionist instead of just a classroom teacher. When a student is struggling, you have two choices. You can blame the student. Tell them they're lazy, they're not trying, they just don't have what it takes. Or you can diagnose the skill gap and teach it. Most of the misery in this country right now isn't coming from bad people, it's coming from good people who were never taught how to read the game, and who are too ashamed to admit they missed it. Shame keeps you stuck. Lifelong learning sets you free. 37% of Americans have lost a relationship over politics. A brother, a father, a best friend, a neighbor. That's not a statistic. That's what happens when a reading crisis goes untreated long enough. People stop being able to read each other. The Wayfinding Station is not a political channel. It's a thinking center. It's a classroom. And in this classroom, you are not your vote. You are not your party. You are not your hat. You are not your mistake. You are a learner. And learners get to change their minds. The MAGA exit is 18 weeks long. Every Tuesday night at 7, a new episode lands. Every episode, one trick, graded in red, one corruption receipt, followed to its source. One Stoic practice for the betrayal, one exit invitation. And at the end of 18 weeks, you walk into a voting booth. Not as a Republican, not as a Democrat, as someone who reads. November is the test. The Stoic framework has survived 2,000 years. Let's find out if it holds up in a voting booth. Close. I'm going to ask you the question again, the one we started with. If you need to pause, pause. Who profits when you don't think for yourself? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is the door. Your homework this week. I want you to take out a piece of paper. Write down one thing you were told that turned out not to be true. Just one. Don't share it, don't post it, don't defend it, just write it down. That's the diagnostic. That's the first skill. Can you admit you misread something? Because that's not weakness. That's the beginning of every education that ever mattered. Next week, Episode 2, we're going to talk about what that hat has cost you. The table has a seat for you. The compass is on the table. The door is open. I'll see you at the station.